The sound did not come first. The pressure did. A dull, subterranean thump that rattled the windows of the cafe on Jaffa Road, making the tiny porcelain cup of coffee jump in its saucer. Eitan Cohen did not look up. Not immediately. He was a man trained by Mossad's Caesarea division to distinguish a truck backfire from a construction blast, a car bomb from a suicide vest. This was the third, the vest. He was off-duty, a spectral concept for a Katsa, a field intelligence officer. He was supposed to be meeting his wife, Rena, and their 2 children, 8-year-old Maya and 6-year-old Tomer. They were taking bus 18, coming to meet him for ice cream. He was 3 minutes late. They were on time. He ran. He didn't feel the pavement under his feet. He didn't hear the first sirens, already wailing from the ether. He just moved toward the column of greasy black smoke rising against the perfect cloudless Jerusalem sky. The air, which moments before had smelled of baked bread and diesel, now smelled of burnt sugar, iron, and something profoundly, terribly chemical. The scene was not a bus. It was a metal skeleton peeled open to the sky. It was a charnel house set ablaze. Civilians were screaming, their brains unable to process the delta between one moment and the next. Eitan's brain was different. It was already recording, analyzing, calculating the blast radius, the type of explosive, the epicenter. And then, his training dissolved. He saw the stroller first, or what was left of it, melted to the pavement near the curb. Tomer's. He had fixed the squeaky wheel just last Tuesday. Rena. His voice was a rasp. He pushed past a stunned police officer who tried to hold him back. My family. He moved into the perimeter of heat and ruin. His eyes scanned the wreckage, the human geography of the attack. He saw things he could never unsee, fragments of life extinguished in a microsecond. He was looking for Rena's yellow dress, for Maya's backpack. He found it. Near the separated axle, lying in the gray, fire-retardant foam, was a single small blue plastic barrette, shaped like a butterfly. It was Maya's. He had bought it for her at the Shuck market last week. She had argued it was for babies. He had insisted it made her look like a princess. Eitan Cohen, the man who had run networks in hostile capitals, who spoke 4 languages, who could disappear into any crowd, knelt on the asphalt. He did not pick up the barrette. He touched it with one finger, his hand shaking. The plastic was warped from the heat. In that instant, the intelligence officer died, and something else was born. The State of Israel would investigate. The Shin Bet would hunt the cell. Mossad would seek the architects abroad. But Eitan Cohen knew none of it would matter. The machinery of state was built to manage conflict, to retaliate, to deter. It was not built for vengeance. He stood up. The blue butterfly burned into his memory. The smoke stung his eyes, but he was not weeping. He was cataloging. The screams of the wounded faded. The sirens became a dull drone. The only thing he could hear was the sudden, crystalline silence in his own head, the space where his family used to be. The state could have its justice. He would have an audit. The Shiva, the traditional Jewish week of mourning, was a suffocating pantomime. Eitan's small Tel Aviv apartment, now cavernously empty, filled with faces. Neighbors brought food that sat untouched. Colleagues from Mossad, the institutement, came, their faces grim, their handshakes firm. They spoke in low, respectful tones. Ronan, his handler from Caesarea, sat with him on a low stool. Eitan, he said, his voice heavy, we will find them. The Prime Minister himself has ordered. I know, Eitan said. His voice was flat, devoid of all resonance. He was looking at a photograph on the mantelpiece. Rena, Maya, and Tomer at the beach, squinting in the sun. I know the procedure. Ronan, a man who could read lies in 6 languages, saw the void in Eitan's eyes. It was not grief, it was an engine being assembled. You're on mandatory leave, Eitan, indefinite. Heal, we will take care of the rest. Of course, Eitan replied. The moment the last mourner left on the 7th day, Eitan locked the door. He walked to his study, sat at his computer, and entered his credentials for Mossad's secure internal network. He was on leave, but his access was not yet revoked. He didn't search for the bus bombing. That was a Shin Bet domestic security matter. The what was irrelevant. He was looking for the how. An operation of this scale, the quality of the explosives, the choice of target, the choreographed escape of the support team, was not the work of a local scrappy cell. It was funded, planned, and supplied from outside. That was Mossad's jurisdiction. That was his jurisdiction. He typed in a query, not for names, but for financial signatures. He cross-referenced chatter about large-scale acquisitions with charitable donations from shell organizations in Europe and the Gulf. For 72 hours he slept in his chair, fueled by black coffee and the cold, bright clarity of his purpose. On the fourth day, a name emerged from the noise. It wasn't a name on any high-profile target list. It was a footnote in a file from the Tzomet Division, Human Intelligence. Adnan al-Hamiri, codenamed the Quartermaster. To the rest of the intelligence community, al-Hamiri was a mid-level financial facilitator for Hamas, based intermittently in Damascus and Beirut. He was seen as an accountant, a logistics man. He moved money from front charities in Germany, Belgium, and Cyprus to operational cells in Gaza and the West Bank. He was on a watch and monitor list. He was more valuable as an intelligence source, a window into the system, than as a target. But Eitan dug deeper. He pulled SIGINT, signals intelligence, intercepts that others had missed. He found a scrambled message from al-Hamiri to a cell leader in Nablus, sent 3 weeks prior to the attack. It was brief. The wedding gift is funded. Ensure the celebration is worthy of the expense. Wedding gift was standard code for a major operation. The expense was the funding al-Hamiri had just pushed through a Hawala network in Cyprus. Eitan stared at the name, Adnan al-Hamiri. This was not a soldier. This was not a bomb maker. This was the architect, the man who had signed the check, the man who had weighed the cost of Rena's dress and Maya's barrette against a political objective and signed his name. Mossad would never sanction an operation against him. Eliminating a financier was bad for intelligence. It would spook the network, forcing it to change methods, blinding the institute for months. Eitan downloaded the entire file. Every known associate, every bank account, every rumored safehouse, every decrypted email. He copied it to a secure, encrypted drive. Then he logged out, erased his search history, and formatted his hard drive. He walked into his bedroom and opened his safe. He took out his sidearm, 3 false passports, 1 German, 1 Canadian, 1 French, and $50,000 in mixed currencies. He left his Mossad-issued identification and his Israeli passport on his unmade bed. He walked out of the apartment, locking the door behind him. He did not look back. Eitan Cohen was officially on bereavement leave. The man who left the apartment was someone else entirely, a ghost with a ledger. A state intelligence agency operates on the logic of surgery. It targets, cuts, and extracts, all while trying to minimize collateral damage to its own information channels. A state seeks to win. Eitan Cohen was no longer a surgeon. He was operating on the logic of rust, slow, patient, invisible, and corrosive. He did not want to win. He wanted to dissolve. He didn't fly from Ben Gurion Airport. That was the first place Ronan would look. Instead, he took a cheroot, shared taxi, to the border crossing with Jordan. His Canadian passport, under the name David Foster, identified him as a tourist. From Amman, he flew to Larnaca, Cyprus. He started there for a reason. It was the first node in al-Hamiri's network that was outside the immediate conflict zone. It was where the clean money from Europe was consolidated before being injected, dirty, into the operational theater. Eitan established himself in a small rental apartment in Limassol, a coastal city bustling with tourists, Russian oligarchs, and the quiet shadow economy of the Mediterranean. He did not look for al-Hamiri. He looked for his banker. From the file, he knew the name of the Hawaladar al-Hamiri used, a man named Tariq Issa, who ran a seemingly legitimate currency exchange bureau near the old port. For 9 days, Eitan did nothing but watch. This was the tradecraft Mossad had beaten into him. The long, agonizing boredom of surveillance. He sat in cafes, reading newspapers. He walked the promenade. He learned Issa's rhythms. Issa arrived at 8 a.m. He left for lunch at 1 p.m., always at the same kebab shop. He closed his bureau at 6 p.m. He was a man of precise, paranoid habits. He drove a modest Opel. He lived in a modest apartment. He was the perfect gray man. Eitan needed to get inside that office. On the 10th day, Eitan made his move. He knew Isa had an assistant who left at 5:30 p.m. Isa stayed late, alone, to reconcile the day's special ledgers. At 5:45 p.m., Eitan, dressed as a municipal worker, approached the alley behind Isa's bureau. He'd already mapped the building's electrical and communication lines. He cut the phone line, a simple, old-school trick. Inside the bureau, Isa would hear his landline go dead. In an age before ubiquitous mobile signal, a Hawaladar would become instantly anxious. He would step outside to check the junction box. Eitan waited. The alley was dark, smelling of salt and stale beer. The back door clicked open. Isa, a short, balding man in a tight shirt, stepped out, peering up at the wires on the wall, muttering in Arabic. He never heard Eitan. Eitan moved like water. He used a chokehold, not a weapon. He didn't want to leave a trace. He held Isa until the man's struggle softened, then went limp. He did not neutralize him. He used a precise ratio of chloroform on a rag, just enough to ensure unconsciousness for 30 minutes. He dragged Isa into the alley's deepest shadow and took his keys. He entered the office. The air was stale, thick with the smell of cheap tobacco. He ignored the cash in the safe. He went directly to the old beige desktop computer in the back. Isa was old school. Eitan knew he wouldn't trust a cloud server. The data would be local. He plugged in a Mossad-issued key, a USB drive that was actually a powerful brute force decryption tool. But he didn't need it. Eitan had watched Isa at lunch. He'd seen him type a password into his phone. He'd recorded it with a high zoom lens. It was his daughter's birthday. The computer opened. It was all there. Ledgers disguised as shipping manifests. Transactions coded as textiles and olive oil. And most importantly, the routing accounts. The primary nodes. One in Hamburg, Germany. Another in Antwerp, Belgium. A holding company in Dubai. This was the circulatory system of Al-Hamiri's network. Eitan plugged in his own drive and copied everything. He then installed a logic bomb, a piece of malware of his own design. It would not activate immediately. It would wait for a specific date, 1 week from now, and then it would not just delete the files. It would corrupt them, slowly, one by one, replacing financial data with random, useless code. It would create a digital cancer. He left the office, locking the door behind him. He walked calmly back to his apartment, packed his bag, and drove to the airport. Tariq Isa would wake up in an alley with a pounding headache and a gap in his memory. By the time he or Al-Hamiri realized the data was gone, Eitan would be in Germany. The first artery was cut. Hamburg was cold, wet, and industrial, a perfect city for washing dirty money. The port, one of the world's largest, was a sieve. Billions in legitimate cargo passed through it daily, providing perfect cover for the illegitimate. Al-Hamiri's node here was not a currency exchange. It was an import-export business. El Akbar GmbH, specializing in auto parts. It was run by a German convert to Islam named Klaus Steiner, who preferred to be called Jibril. Eitan, now traveling as Pierre Fournier, a French journalist, took a room in a boarding house across the canal from El Akbar's warehouse. He had a clear view of the loading bay and the front office. Steiner was different from Isa. He was nervous, sloppy. Eitan watched him for 3 days. Steiner was a true believer, but he was a bad operative. He used the same phone for personal and business calls. He met with couriers in broad daylight at public train stations. Eitan knew this node was not just for finance, it was for logistics. This was where the money Isa sent was used to purchase dual-use items, advanced electronics, chemical precursors for explosives, specialty metals. Eitan didn't need to break in. He needed to turn it. He waited until Steiner left the warehouse for the night, following him to his apartment in the St. Georg district. Eitan picked the lock with ease. The apartment was small, filled with religious texts and bodybuilding magazines. Eitan didn't touch anything. He planted 3 microbugs, one in the phone, one under the kitchen table, and one in the man's bedroom. He was out in 4 minutes. For the next 48 hours, Eitan sat in his cold room, listening. The feed was a river of banality until the 3rd night. A call came in. Eitan's blood chilled. The voice was distorted, likely using a digital scrambler, but the cadence was unmistakable. It was Adnan al-Hamiri. "The Cyprus package is late," al-Hamiri said. His voice was calm, but tight. I have not heard from Tariq," Steiner stammered. "His lines are dead." There was a long, cold silence. "That is his problem. It is now your problem. The brothers in Nablus are waiting for the tools. The account must be filled. Use the emergency reserve." "But the reserve is for—" "Use it," al-Hamiri commanded. "And Jibril? Find our friend in Cyprus. Find out why he is quiet." The line cut. Eitan smiled. It was the first time he had felt any expression in weeks. Al-Hamiri was worried. He was moving money from a dormant account, an account that would be easier to trace. But Eitan had a bigger plan. He waited for Steiner to leave the next morning, his panic obvious in his rushed, jerky movements. Eitan, again in the guise of a municipal worker, approached the warehouse. He didn't go inside. He went to the main power conduit on the exterior wall. He opened the panel. He attached a small, custom-built device. It was a high-voltage surge protector, but in reverse. It was designed to absorb power normally, but when triggered remotely, it would release a massive, targeted electromagnetic pulse, EMP. It was a weapon Mossad had designed to fry the electronics of Iranian nuclear facilities. It was not supposed to be used. It was certainly not supposed to be in the hands of a bereaved agent on leave. Eitan walked away. He sat in his cafe. He waited. At 3 p.m., a truck arrived. This was the shipment. Steiner was inside, overseeing the loading of auto parts that Eitan knew were high-frequency transmitters and timers. Eitan took a sip of his espresso. He pressed a simple button on a modified cell phone. Across the canal, every light in the El Akbar warehouse flickered and died. Every computer, every server, every hard drive, every digital scale, and every piece of specialized equipment inside was instantly and permanently rendered inert. The EMP fried every circuit board, melting the delicate electronics into useless slag. The truck's engine died. Steiner's phone went dead in his hand, but Eitan wasn't finished. 2 minutes later, he made an anonymous call to the Bundespolizei, German federal police. "I am a truck driver," he said in perfect accented German. "I just saw a man at El Akbar GmbH on the canal, Klaus Steiner. He was loading crates into a truck. He was arguing with another man about explosives and the operation. I think they are terrorists." He hung up. Within 10 minutes, the canal was flooded with the blue lights of the police. They would find Steiner, panicked, trying to flee. They would find a warehouse full of non-functional but highly illegal equipment. They would find the auto parts that were clearly components for IEDs. Steiner would be arrested. The German authorities would gleefully announce they had broken a major terror funding ring. Al-Hamiri wouldn't just lose his Hamburg node, he would lose his European logistics hub, and he would believe, wrongly, that his man in Cyprus had talked. The network was not just cut. It was beginning to poison itself. The third node was Antwerp, Belgium. This was the most sensitive. If Cyprus was the bank and Hamburg was the factory, Antwerp was the vault. This was where Al-Hamiri's network converted its cash into the one commodity that is truly untraceable, universally valuable, and easy to move: diamonds. Eitan arrived in Antwerp under his German passport, Michael Haas, a diamond appraiser from Berlin. The city's diamond district is a fortress, a few square blocks of gray buildings protected by more cameras, biometric scanners, and private security than most military bases. The quartermaster's man here was not a believer like Steiner or a coward like Isa. He was a professional, an Israeli, ironically, a secular Jew named Avi Ron, who had been dishonorably discharged from the IDF for theft and now worked as a broker in the diamond exchange. He had no ideology. He worked for profit. Eitan knew he could not use force here. He could not use tricks. Ron was too smart, too connected, so Eitan used the one weapon Ron would understand: greed. Eitan, as Haas, spent 2 days in the exchange, appraising stones, making his face known. He let it be known he was looking for a specific type of stone: large, high clarity, and, most importantly, uncertified. blood diamonds. He was, in effect, posing as a money launderer himself. On the third day, as expected, Avi Ron approached him in the smoky cafeteria of the exchange. "I hear you are a man of specific tastes, Herr Haas," Ron said, sitting down without asking. He was built like a bull, with cold, intelligent eyes. "I am a man who appreciates value outside of arbitrary systems," Eitan replied, not looking up from his loop. "Value is my business." Ron slid a small folded piece of paper across the table. "This is my private office. Come tonight, 7 o'clock. We will discuss value." Eitan had his in. That evening he arrived at Ron's office. It was a high-security penthouse, scanned for bugs daily. Eitan was patted down, his tools taken. "Just a precaution," Ron smiled, pouring 2 glasses of whiskey. "In my business, trust is the most expensive commodity. And the most volatile," Eitan said. They talked for an hour. Eitan, drawing on his deep Mossad training in financial warfare, constructed a flawless persona. He was the representative for a consortium of Berlin industrialists looking to move 50 million euros in undeclared profits into hard assets. Ron's eyes lit up. This was a score far larger than the scraps Al-Hamiri sent him. "This is possible," Ron said. "But my commission for such a complex transaction would be significant. 15%. 5, Eitan countered. "And we provide our own courier for transport." They haggled. They drank. They were 2 professionals building a conspiracy. Finally, they agreed on 9%. "To seal our new friendship," Eitan said, "my associates have asked me to provide you with a gift. A sign of our good faith." He reached into his briefcase, which had been returned to him, and pulled out a small leather-bound box. Inside was a hard drive. Ron looked at it, confused. "What is this?" "My associates are very paranoid," Eitan said. "They believe the exchanges are monitored. This is a new proprietary encryption software. It creates a digital vault on your system that is invisible to any network scan. All our future transactions will be logged through this. It's for your protection and ours." Ron, a man greedy for a 4.5 million euro commission, saw only the money. He saw a tool to protect his business. He took the drive. "I will install it tonight," Ron said. "Send my compliments to your associates. This is the beginning of a beautiful friendship." Eitan left the penthouse. He went straight to his hotel and then to the Brussels train station. He was on a train to Paris before Ron even plugged the drive into his server. The drive was not encryption software, it was a worm. A highly advanced cyber weapon stolen from Mossad's Unit 8200 Signals Intelligence Archives. The moment Ron plugged it in, the worm activated. It did not steal his data. It did not destroy it. It cloned it. It copied Ron's entire digital ledger, every transaction, every client, every hidden account. And then it did something beautifully simple. It identified Ron's primary client, Al-Hamiri, listed under a code name, and began to siphon. It set up a recursive algorithm. Every time a deposit came in from one of Al-Hamiri's accounts, the worm would shave off 1.5%. Not enough to be noticed immediately, but enough to bleed the network dry over time. Where did it send the money? Not to Eitan. It sent the 1.5% to a dozen different, competing organizations. A slice to Hezbollah's finance wing, a slice to a renegade Fatah cell, a slice to a shell company run by Iranian intelligence. Eitan had not just stolen Al-Hamiri's money, he had weaponized it. When Al-Hamiri inevitably discovered the skimming, he would not suspect a ghost. He would suspect his own broker, Avi Ron. And worse, Ron's books would show that the money was going to all of Al-Hamiri's enemies. It was the perfect paradox. Al-Hamiri's own money was now funding his rivals. The Antwerp node would not just collapse, it would explode, taking Ron with it and sowing catastrophic distrust throughout the entire clandestine financial world. The effect was not immediate, it was a creeping paralysis. In Damascus, Adnan Al-Hamiri, the quartermaster, sat in his secure apartment, staring at his encrypted messaging system. He had not slept in 4 days. His network was not just damaged, it was actively disintegrating. Tariq Issa, his banker in Cyprus, had vanished. After waking up in the alley, Issa had panicked, emptied his personal accounts, and fled to parts unknown, convinced al-Hamiri had sent a team to liquidate him for losing the data. The Cyprus node was gone. Klaus Steiner, his man in Hamburg, was on the front page of Der Spiegel. The German authorities were calling it the biggest terror logistics bust in a decade. The Hamburg node was gone, and Avi Ron. This was the worst. Al-Hamiri had received a frantic coded message from Ron, claiming his accounts were being bled and that he was being set up. Then, silence. 2 days later, a report from a Sayanim, Mossad helper, though al-Hamiri didn't know that, in Antwerp. Avi Ron's body had been found in the Scheldt River. The Belgian police were ruling it a gangland dispute. Al-Hamiri was blind. In 6 weeks, his 3 most critical European hubs had been neutralized. But it was worse than that. The malware Eitan had planted in Cyprus was now metastasizing. The corrupted data had spread to the secondary ledgers, creating ghost transactions and erasing payment histories. The worm in Antwerp was now siphoning funds at an accelerated rate, and al-Hamiri was getting furious messages from Hezbollah's financial chief, accusing him of donating to Fatah, and from Fatah, accusing him of funding Hezbollah. He was caught in a hall of mirrors. The real impact was felt on the ground. In a basement in Nablus, a Hamas cell leader, the engineer, waited for a payment. He needed the funds to purchase 50 kilograms of fertilizer and the specific electronic components for the triggers. The money, promised by the quartermaster, never arrived. The courier never showed. The operation, a planned multi-vehicle attack in Tel Aviv, was aborted. In Gaza, a team planning a cross-border tunnel operation ran out of money for cement and drilling supplies. The project stalled. Informants who provided intelligence on IDF patrols stopped making calls. Their handlers had no cash to pay them. Across the West Bank and Gaza, Hamas's operational capacity simply stopped. The organization was strangled. They had men, they had weapons, but they had no cash, no logistics, no gasoline for the machine. Back in Tel Aviv, at the glass and steel headquarters of Mossad, a meeting of the highest urgency was called. Ronan, Eitan's former handler, stood before the director and the heads of Tzomet and Caesarea. "It's a complete mystery," a Tzomet analyst said, pointing to a graph showing a 90% drop in Hamas's financial activity. "Their entire European network has collapsed. It's not just one node, it's systemic. They're deaf, dumb, and broke." "How?" the director asked, his voice low. "We don't know," the analyst admitted. "The Germans caught Steiner by a lucky tip. The Cyprus Hawaladar just disappeared, and the Antwerp broker was hit, but it looks like internal rivalries. The why is clear, the network is crippled, the how is a ghost." Ronan said nothing. He stared at the map. Cyprus, Hamburg, Antwerp, the precise, surgical, and utterly devastating sequence. It wasn't the brute force of a state operation. It was too elegant, too personal. He thought of Eitan Cohen. He thought of the cold, hollow look in his eyes at the Shiva. He thought of the man's intimate knowledge of al-Hamiri's file. Ronan felt a cold dread creep up his spine. He knew exactly what had happened. One of his own, a man broken by grief, had gone into the wild. He had become a phantom, and in his personal quest for vengeance, he had accomplished what the entire institute had failed to do for a decade. He had crippled the enemy. "It's a miracle," the director said. Ronan nodded. A miracle. But he knew it was the work of a single avenging angel. And he knew that angel was still out there. Adnan al-Hamiri was a financier, but he had survived for 20 years in a world of violence by being meticulous. He was not a fool. The simultaneous collapse of his network was not coincidence. The German bust he could accept as bad luck. The Antwerp broker's accident he could accept as greed. But the disappearance of Isa in Cyprus, combined with the logic bombs that had fried his data, that was a professional job. Someone was hunting him, not his organization, him. He fled his apartment in Damascus, not trusting the protection of his Syrian hosts, and retreated to a fortified villa in the hills above Beirut. He cut off all communication, except for one single-use encrypted satellite phone. He was a spider whose web had been burned away. He was now just a spider. He began his own investigation. He used his remaining funds, a personal emergency cash, to pay contacts in Europe. He needed to know what had happened. From Hamburg, he learned the tip to the police had come from a public phone, but a witness had seen a municipal worker near the warehouse power conduit minutes before the unexplained EMP. From Antwerp, his contacts reviewed security footage from the diamond exchange. They found the tapes from the week of Ron's neutralization had been mysteriously corrupted. But a facial recognition query on Michael Haas, Eitan's German cover, from a street camera flagged a Level 9, do not detain, report only, match in Mossad's internal database. The image was old, from an operation Eitan had run in Vienna. The file was sealed, but the implication was clear. This was the Institute, but it couldn't be. Mossad didn't operate this way. They didn't burn assets. They didn't create this much chaos. They watched, they recruited, they managed. This was messy. This was angry. Al-Hamiri sat in his villa, staring at the Mediterranean. He reran the timeline. The attacks on his network began just weeks after the Jerusalem Bus 18 operation. He remembered the operation well. He had funded it. He remembered the coded message. The wedding gift. He did something he had never done before. He requested the after-action report, including the casualty list. He read the names of the dead. He cross-referenced them with known Israeli intelligence and military personnel. He found it. Rena Cohen, Maya Cohen, Tomer Cohen. He ran the name Cohen. A list appeared, and there he was, Eitan Cohen. Katza, Caesarea Division. Specialties: financial warfare, covert infiltration, European operations. Al-Hamiri's blood ran cold. He looked at the grainy photo of Michael Haas. He looked at the file photo of Eitan Cohen. "You," he whispered. It was not the state of Israel. It was one man, a widower, a father. In that moment, Al-Hamiri's professional paranoia was eclipsed by a profound, personal terror. He was not being hunted by an organization with rules of engagement. He was being hunted by a man who had nothing left to lose. He was no longer the quartermaster. He was the target. He had to get out. He had to build a new life, a new face. He had one last reserve, a cache of gold and bearer bonds hidden in a vault in Dubai. It was his retirement, his escape. He would have to move it himself. He could trust no one. He booked a flight from Beirut to Dubai under a false Yemeni passport. It was his last, desperate move. Dubai was a city of glass, a monument to the velocity of modern capital. It was the perfect place to hide money, and the perfect place to lose oneself. Eitan was already there. He was waiting. He knew Al-Hamiri's network was dead. He knew the man's psychology. A man like Al-Hamiri, a man who survived by controlling the flow of money, would always have a personal reserve, a go-bag of immense wealth. Eitan had analyzed the ledgers from Cyprus. He found the telltale signs: regular, small, lost transfers, all routed through a shell company that held a single asset, a high-security vault at a private depository in the Dubai International Financial Center. Eitan did not have his French, German, or Canadian passports. He was now Omar al-Jamil, a wealthy Saudi investor. He had procured the identity from a source in Mossad's deep cover arsenal, an asset he had cultivated for years, calling in the one and only favor he would ever ask. He did not set up surveillance on the vault. The security was too high. Instead, he did what he did best. He exploited the human element. He identified the vault's manager, a British expatriate named Simon Bradford. Eitan spent a week learning his habits. Bradford was a creature of routine. He was also a man with significant gambling debts. Eitan, as Omar, bumped into Bradford at the high-stakes baccarat tables at one of the city's most exclusive casinos. "A bad run," Eitan said sympathetically, as Bradford lost another hand. "You could say that," Bradford muttered. "Allow me," Eitan said, sliding a chip worth $10,000 onto Bradford's bet. Fortune favors the bold. The hand won. For 3 nights, Eitan became Bradford's best friend, his lucky charm. He funded the man's gambling, letting him win, letting him feel the rush of solvency. On the 4th night, Eitan made his request. I have a business associate who uses your depository, Aitan said in the privacy of a VIP lounge. A Yemeni gentleman. I believe he may be unwell. I need to ensure the assets in his box are secure. Bradford's face paled. I cannot grant access without the client. Biometrics, keys. It's impossible. I am not asking to access the box, Simon, Aitan said, his voice turning from warm to ice. I am simply asking to be present when he accesses it. I need to have a word with him, in private, in the vault. Aitan slid a bank statement across the table. It showed a new account in Bradford's name, opened in the Cayman Islands, containing $200,000. For your trouble, Aitan said. Or this information. He slid over a second folder, this one containing photographs of Bradford's wife and children. Goes to the men you owe money to. I believe they are not as forgiving as I am. Bradford, trapped, nodded. What do you need? When he arrives, you will bring him to the main vault as per protocol. You will use the routine maintenance excuse to escort him to the secondary viewing room. I will be waiting. The cameras in that room will be malfunctioning for 10 minutes. Bradford was sweating. He'll be here tomorrow, 11 a.m. I know, Aitan said. The vault was cold. The air was pressurized, humming with the sound of filtration systems. It smelled of steel and old money. Aitan Cohen stood in the small, windowless viewing room. He wore the simple uniform of a vault attendant. He was unarmed. He didn't need a weapon. He heard footsteps, the heavy thud of the vault's magnetic lock disengaging. Simon Bradford opened the door. Mr. Ghazi, he said, his voice trembling. If you will please wait in here, a minor issue with the main terminal. Adnan al-Hamiri stepped inside. He was no longer the confident quartermaster. He was a haggard, paranoid man, clutching a briefcase. He saw Aitan. His eyes went wide. He did not recognize him as the Mossad agent. He recognized him as no one, a stranger, a threat. Who are you? Al-Hamiri demanded, backing against the wall. Where is Bradford? Bradford had already locked the door from the outside. Aitan did not move. Please, he said, his voice calm. Sit down, Adnan. Hearing his real name, Al-Hamiri's blood drained from his face. He fumbled in his jacket, pulling a small .32 caliber pistol. Aitan ignored it. Your network in Cyprus. It was compromised by a logic bomb that corrupted your ledgers. Al-Hamiri stared, his hand shaking. Your logistics hub in Hamburg. It was neutralized by a targeted EMP, followed by an anonymous tip to the Bundespolizei. What is this? Al-Hamiri stammered. Your broker in Antwerp was inefficient, Aitan continued, his voice a monotone. His accounts were siphoned, with funds redirected to your competitors. It made his accidental death a near certainty. Al-Hamiri was beginning to understand. This was not a shakedown. This was not a kidnapping. This is an audit, Aitan said. He stepped forward. Al-Hamiri raised the gun. Stay back. Aitan kept walking. You lost 40 million euros in Cyprus. You lost the ability to build and ship your devices from Germany. You lost your entire diamond reserve in Belgium. Your cells are deaf. Your informants are silent. Your engineers are idle. Your life's work is finished. Al-Hamiri fired. The shot was deafening in the small room. The bullet struck Aitan in the left shoulder. He barely flinched. The impact spun him slightly, but he kept his eyes locked on Al-Hamiri. The quartermaster, terrified, looked at the blood spreading on Aitan's uniform, then at the man's face, which registered no pain. Only a cold, terrible focus. Aitan took the gun from Al-Hamiri's limp hand, as if taking a pen from a child. He placed it on the table. It was you, Al-Hamiri whispered, the realization finally dawning. The bus 18, the Cohen family. It was you. Yes, Aitan said. He pressed a small button on the wall, the intercom to the main floor. Bradford, call Dubai police. Inform them you have detained a man, Adnan Al-Hamiri, who is attempting to access a vault using a false passport. Inform them he is a wanted financier for Hamas, and he has just shot a vault attendant. Through the speaker, Bradford's terrified voice crackled. Yes, right away. Al-Hamiri looked at Aitan, utterly broken. You won't neutralize me." "No," Eitan said. He walked to the door. "I am not a soldier. I am an auditor." He looked back at the man who had murdered his family. "I am not here to make you a martyr. I am here to make you irrelevant. Your organization is crippled. Your money is gone. Your name is public. The Syrians you betrayed will be waiting for you if the Israelis don't get you first. You have nothing." Eitan paused, his hand on the door. "I am leaving you, with the bill." He opened the door and walked out, leaving Al-Hamiri alone in the vault, a man who had just realized that death was a mercy he would not be granted. Eitan Cohen did not wait for the Dubai police. He walked out of the financial center, blending into the lunchtime crowd of bankers and tourists. He was just another man in a blood-stained shirt, an everyday sight in a land of construction and rough labor. He went to a small, anonymous clinic. He paid cash to have the bullet removed from his shoulder. The doctor, a man who knew not to ask questions, stitched him up. From there, he went to the airport. He did not use his Saudi, German, French, or Canadian passports. He used the last one, a clean, fresh American passport under the name Robert Stone. He booked a one-way ticket, not to Tel Aviv, not to Europe. He flew to Bangkok. As his plane climbed over the Persian Gulf, the full weight of his actions settled onto him. He had completed his audit. He had meticulously, clinically, and successfully dismantled the entire financial and logistical infrastructure of his enemy. He had avenged Rina, Maya, and Tomer. He had crippled Hamas for a decade. The intelligence reports he would never read would confirm it. The organization would be forced to spend the next 10 years not attacking, but rebuilding, scrambling to find new funding, new routes, new quartermasters. The lost decade for Hamas would be a direct result of Eitan's lost period. He had done what an army could not. He had done what the Institute could not. He felt nothing. The cold, bright fire that had fueled him for months had burned out. The engine of vengeance had consumed all the grief, all the pain, and all the love. It had left only a void. He had proven that one man, with enough leverage, skill, and absolute clarity of purpose, could change the course of a conflict. He had become a force of geopolitical significance. But the man, Eitan Cohen, was gone. The husband, the father, the Katsa, they were all casualties, as dead as the men he had hunted. When he landed in Bangkok, he walked out into the humid, chaotic embrace of the city. He took a cab to the old quarter, rented a small, nondescript room, and disappeared. He became a ghost, haunted not by the men he had destroyed, but by the family he had avenged. He had closed the account, but the cost of the transaction was his own soul. Years later in Tel Aviv, Ronan, now a deputy director of Mossad, sat in his office. He was reviewing a file on the miraculous collapse of Hamas's financing in the early 2000s. It was still officially classified as cause unknown. Ronan knew better. He opened a locked drawer in his desk. He kept a private off-book file. In it was a single sheet of paper. It was a flagged intelligence report from a Katsa in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. The report noted a person of interest resembling Eitan Cohen, spotted donating a large sum of cash to a local orphanage. The man was using a different name, looked older, and had a significant scar on his left shoulder. By the time the Katsa had moved to intercept, the man was gone. Ronan looked at the report. He thought of the man he had trained, the brilliant, warm agent who had been broken by the Bus 18 bombing. Eitan had become Mossad's greatest, most tragic success story, an operation of one. He had single-handedly provided Israel with a decade of relative quiet on that front, a decade of security bought with one man's personal hell. Ronan picked up the report. He walked to his personal shredder. He fed the paper into the machine, erasing the last official trace of Eitan Cohen. Some ghosts, he reasoned, were meant to stay ghosts. They had earned their peace, or at least their silence. The file on the miraculous collapse would remain cause unknown. It was the Institute's final, unspoken thank you, a final act of protection for the agent who had avenged his own, and in doing so, had protected the entire nation. The story of Eitan Cohen is not found in any official history. It is not taught at the Mossad Training Academy. It is a story that exists only in the negative space of history, in the attacks that didn't happen, in the cells that never formed, in the decade of strategic quiet that no one could explain. His revenge was not a single, satisfying act of violence. It was a meticulous, systemic disassembly. He did not just neutralize a man, he bankrupted a cause. He proved that true revenge is not about balancing the scales of justice, but about taking the scales, the weights, and the entire market with them. He crippled his enemy. But the cost was absolute. Eitan Cohen vanished into the anonymity of Southeast Asia, a man forever auditing a past that he could never reconcile. He had taken his payment, but he would be paying the debt in the silence of his own memory for the rest of his life. The blue butterfly-shaped beret was gone, lost in the ashes of Jerusalem. But its weight was something he would carry forever. This is cinematic intel. The operations we track are complex, and the motivations are never simple. If this declassified history provided you with value, please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. We have many more files to open. Transmission end.